Let's get to the big story now. This morning, we want to focus a bit on community policing. General Kaihura has tried to dwell a lot on this. He feels that's the best way to do policing, community policing, and then there's the whole aspect of crime preventers. Before elections, that man himself, he went on camera and he said that there are about 11 million crime preventers in this country. I don't know how far true that is. Where are they? What are they doing? Some people feel these are the guys that are out there propagating crime. I don't know. There are some folks that have done some research on this, trying to establish whether or not it's working. What's the feedback from the people out there? Are they involved? Anyway, let's get to digging. We are with James Nkubi. James Nkubi is from Uganda Human Rights Network, or Human Rights Network. And he was involved in this research. Good morning.
Good morning, Joel.
We, in a short while, will be joined by somebody from police. That's Afande Anatoli Muletelwa. He's the Assistant Commissioner, Community Policing. So he'll talk to us about what they're doing from their end. So I have a little book here. It's Katogo Out There, Community Voices on Crime Prevention and Security. The first time somebody looks at this, Katogo Out There, they're thinking there's a lot of confusion and so on and so forth. You folks went out there to do research and try and understand how this thing is working. What did you find?
Well, first of all, the title itself is a quotation, a direct quotation from what the people were saying, because these are community voices. But also, you know, in Uganda that Katogo can be a delicacy if it has the rightful ingredients.
So you say this Katogo here should have a good connotation?
Actually, essentially, community policing is supposed to be a well-crafted sort of ingredients put together. It's supposed to be a good Katogo. Because all the initiatives of WhatsApp, some people on WhatsApp in their community policing, in the communities, we have crime preventers, we have patrols. We take these, or when you analyze all these, they become sort of ingredients to make this whole concept. Now, community policing in itself is one of the best initiatives that has been invented in time when it comes to safety and security. And there's no contention on that reality. However, the contention is that how it is understood and how it is implemented. And our quest was to really analyze this reality. What is out there that the community is saying or is doing in relation to community policing, and whether actually they conceptualize it rightly. Because you see, Joel, you cannot purport to be doing something unless you have conceptualized it well, or alternatively, this conceptualization when it has there's a particular policy or guideline that you're following. So in our findings, which were, first of all, this work was done in we had 8 dialogues within the divisions of Kampala, and then we went out in the rural or the upcountry places around 5 of them, Bushenyi, Kabalore, Kumi, among others. That was the sampling, which was qualitative, honestly, not necessarily scientific. And the agenda there was simply no biases with us to the field, but let's pick out the ideals that people are saying. And it was a wide range kind of undertaking, including the borders, women vendors in markets. It was in local languages to get the reality of the fact. And one of the most glaring reality there that is emerging is that there is no particular policy guideline that is driving community policing. There is no particular legal policy framework. When I talk about legal policy framework, I'm sure with your background, you follow it. Okay? So you don't have those particular standards, which are supposed to be the minimum that everyone taps into and localizes. So what we are having actually is some communities on a frolic of their own, but purportedly undertaking community policing. That is the first glaring reality, which of course means it affects almost all the other issues. Then secondly is the resilience of Ugandans. There are so many initiatives out there to curb crime, to curb or to enhance safety and security. And it is interesting that even when we're talking, we think it is important that even when the talks for a policy, a national guideline comes up, you cannot necessarily forego or look the other way around when these initiatives are before you, when all they need to be is to be strengthened, to be polished, to be put right, because some of them were not necessarily right. We discovered again that some of these initiatives are in oblivion of human rights and rule of law. You find a village where to them it is okay to hold a security meeting and women don't talk. Okay, it is okay to hold a security meeting. Then they're like, Joel, you're well known to be a problem in the village. You're called up, you're flogged. Okay, despite the fact that there have been, decisions in court and our Bill of Rights is very clear on inhumane treatment and all that. And the community normalizes that, and it says this is how we are settling our issues. This is how we are community policing ourselves.
Are there success stories of this thing called community policing? General Kaihura keeps, throwing it all over the place. He says it's the best thing that has ever happened to the police force. With all these crime preventers, some folks call them crime promoters. But in your research, in your interaction with the people down there, are there success stories? Are there people who tell you, we feel a bit safer because we have these people that are on the lookout and so on?
They are there. And of course, there is a misconceptualization of people believing that community policing is about police. And when we see police patrolling, and that is it. But most of them, actually, the most successful ventures we discovered are those that are community-led, where the police is just tapping in. Community-led in the context that they are birthed by the community. They believe in them, they build them up, and then they strengthen them. The one interesting one is, which is a bit elitist, and so much in the urban areas, is the groups coming together and they form WhatsApp. They discover that, okay, how many houses are we? Again, more or less on the concept of Mayumba Kumi, which was also reimagined. They discover that, okay, how many are we in this area where, 20 households? Can we have all the two members in the household bring their phone numbers? And then we put it on WhatsApp. So there is that kind of even if you're in town and something is amiss en route to your home, you'll discover someone who has gone before you is saying, be careful, a car's parked here. Be careful, maybe stop. There's that kind of intelligence, if you wish, alerting people. That was one of the most actually very interesting innovations. And then secondly is the way the communities in formations of markets, market vendors, and how they have organized themselves. They are not waiting for police to come and organize them. They organize themselves. They have their bylaws, what time they should leave the market. They have hired their own guards whom they know, who keep watch of their properties when they are gone. One interesting example was here in Nakawa, where the women are part of this agenda, women market, where they form their own formations. They have their own security committees, security teams. They have their neighborhood watches in the stalls, not in the houses. Again, somehow an interesting reinvention of neighborhood watch. For them, they're taking it in the context of physical, not houses. So there were those very interesting examples which are emerging, and of course the usual where police is doing patrols, sometimes with the community members. And then, of course, the contentious or controversial crime preventers in some areas working superbly, where the crime preventers were vetted by the community. It is working superbly because there is accountability to the community. And where they were vetted by the DPCs and the RDCs, it is amiss because people, there are questions of, okay, you're working for who?
To what extent, you talked about the law, to what extent am I under obligation to say follow an order, a command, if you like, from a community, a crime preventer for that matter? There's a popular fashion designer. She's called Santa Anzo. I think it's a day or two ago. She posted on her social media account. She was on her way back home and she meets these guys who, were hooded and they were wielding sticks. And so they surrounded her car and said, we want to check your car. We are looking out for thieves. We are crime preventers. And of course, she did not let them in. She was worried, and according to the story that I read. And she said, can I call the LC chairperson so that I first be certain about who you are and so on. After, back and forth, eventually they let her go. But that's resemblant to many other accounts of people that have encountered people who will say they are crime preventers, but you see many times they're the ones involved in criminality. Some will say we're crime preventers, you open the door, they beat you up, take your money and so on. How do we get to a point where I can respect a crime preventer because they know they mean well? So the question of mandate, how do we get to that place? Because you see, if there is no mandate, I'm at odds to obey what a crime preventer is telling me. I don't see their legal mandate, so if a crime preventer tells me stop, I am under no obligation, except perhaps if it's a police officer.
Yeah, and in these findings, that's one of the most interesting things we found, the nebulous nature of crime preventers. The recruitment questions, the command and control questions, the questions of accountability. You see, crime preventers, or ideally, is supposed to be a creation of community. We sit in the village, we vet. We second Joel, we second James, and like, we are picking you guys, 10 of you, to begin working with the police. Now, I want you to put yourself in a situation where you were in a village meeting, and you chose those 10 boys. You find them, or girls, and you find them on the way. And they're telling you, Joel, stop, we need to do some checking. There is that natural flow or yield to, these are people we picked them as a whole. Probably they are following up on something. There is a yield to them because you gave them, you ceded some bit of delegation to them. Now, we have a context here where some are not known in the villages, and or if they are known, they derive the so-called authority that they have from probably the DPCs or the DSOs or the RDCs. So it is a good concept that is being implemented in a very erroneous or manner which has flaws, especially when it comes to the bit of recruitment, and more importantly to the bit of accountability because of that. And of course, these stories of extortion, they came up, stories of identity, you don't know, they came up. And then of course, the reality of the matter is that some of these crime preventers were stationed at police stations, when actually they are supposed to be within the communities, okay? So they were being stationed at these police stations. And that, of course, becomes a problem in its own way.
Well, we want to dig deeper and try and make sense of this, your report. I'm hoping you did collaborate with police because these are the guys that are spearheading community policing. They're telling us it works. Let them tell us now whether or not it actually does work. Community policing and the like. We've been joined by Afande Anatoli Muleterwa. He's the Assistant Commissioner, Community Policing. Afande, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Senyon.
How are you?
Glad meeting you. I'm fine, terrific, and ready to serve.
Ready to serve.
Good morning, James.
Good morning.
James had intentions of delaying my appearance here because he thought I would not come and do justice against what they call.
Afande, why are you full of excuses? If you're late, you say, I'm sorry, I'm late, so you're blaming him for you being late?
He's partly part of
it. And I don't control traffic in Uganda.
I actually thought you have lead cars and all these sirens.
Yeah,
blaze them and everyone gives you way.
Even when they are there, the road is not also mine alone.
Anyway, we are glad that you could join us eventually.
I have come, yes.
You found us talking about the aspect of crime preventers. Just before elections, your boss, General Kale Kaihura, on camera, he said that there are about 11 million crime preventers. I wonder where those crime preventers are, what they are doing. We were discussing cases of people who, have encountered folks in their community in the middle of the night, and there are these guys who are wielding sticks, they're stopping them and saying, we are crime preventers, we want to check your car. And so the person does not know whether or not to open their car for these guys. Are they thieves? Are they, are they crime preventers? And if they are, what's their mandate?
Mr. Senyonyi, I've always loved you from a positive point of your presentations. But this time around, you are disorganizing my entry point to the talk show by not providing an opportunity to balance this presentation.
That's why you're here, so that you can give us that balance. Because
yes.
I cannot do your job. So we are glad you eventually come to tell us.
Yes, my coming is to, first of all, thank you for providing this opportunity to us, to me in particular, and my people in the department, my boss in the department of community policing, to enable us share more information about what we do with the community out there. Now, the issue of crime prevention, in my view, it is a very good view. It's a very good venture, and crime preventers out there, including you, by the way, Mr. Senyon. Did you know that you are a crime preventer? I
didn't know, because the ones we know as crime preventers are trained, they do chaka-mchaka, learn how to shoot the gun, the president comes and passes them out.
But on various occasions I've mobilized you. I've shared many talk shows with you. You have even read the law, and you know your mandate in the Constitution, and therefore, by virtue of that alone, by the way, even you sit on this TV and give security tips to Ugandans out there, you're doing a very commendable job. And as such, you're a crime preventer in your own entity. Now, there are instances where there's a lot of vulgarization of the word crime preventers. Fellow listeners, viewers, and panelists, we need to accept that crime preventers are doing a commendable job. First of all, where is their legal premises? You know, when you look at the national objectives in the Constitution, it gives a clear view about what Ugandans can be able to do, and as such in the context of crime prevention. When you come to look at Article 17, among the roles of citizenry, you realize that it gives a citizen a role of working together with security organizations in order to maintain law and order. And then Article 212D enjoins us. And then when we go to the Criminal Procedure Code, section I think 15 or 16, which talks about that any citizen, when he detects the existence of crime, he can conduct citizen arrest and then hand over to police. So by virtue of all of those, we're within the domains of crime prevention.
That's understood, Afande. But here is the complexity. The complexity comes in when police says now we are going to formulate a group of sorts. Because I should be able to, and by that, of course, the arrest of some people, as a citizen. So any citizen should be able to do that. But when police says now we're going to have a structure of sorts, so there's these guys that we have trained, some of them are armed. They have got guns. Some have got sticks, and that's what they're using out there in the community. There's a bit of a problem because as a citizen, as a community member, I'm thinking, to what extent should I obey or not what these guys tell me? When they tell me stop, want to check your car, I'm thinking, what's your mandate? If Muletirwa stops me, he's a police officer. I am bound to stop. The Police Act and several other rules and regulations, yeah, do, you know, they expect me to do that. But when a guy calling himself a crime preventer stops me, he wants to frisk me, I'm at odds, because there's no clear structure that gives him a particular mandate. I'm thinking this could be a goon, and so I will drive away.
I wish to thank you for that information, and that is the information for which really I'm going to act on. You know, because when we talk about the issue of crime prevention, it is within community policy. So given such information, we are going to involve those who work with us, including you, to see how we can be able to streamline the activities of our partners in that area.
James, where do you see the mismatch? Because we have got a police force of about 45,000. Muletirwa will tell us the exact number as of now. Juxtapose that against nearly 40 million Ugandans. Yeah. So we don't have enough policemen for everybody. And so that means we should be vigilant. But how do we get to do that? Is it that sometimes there is not so much trust for the police, and so when police says we are bringing these people, people are weary? Or is it that police is just, you know, for one reason or another, finding it difficult to penetrate? Because at the end of the day, you're looking at the community, which needs help. Yeah. You know, there's not enough police officers. So among themselves, they should be able to do this. But many times there's a clash. There's communities where it has worked, commendably so. Yeah. But there's many communities where it still is a struggle. How do we bridge that gap?
I think more importantly, we need to appreciate that crime preventers are only a portion of the so many ways of undertaking community policing or ensuring safety and security. And like Anatoly was saying, there is no contention on the beauty of community policing. Okay, but when you I want to bring in here the notion of the local councils. Okay, we can dilly-dally with the elections. We can postpone whatever time we want to postpone, but we know for fact from history that the first reality when it comes to safety and security in a community, it is the LCs. I can give you an example. In some of the places where I went to, even if they're dysfunctional, there are those that remain and people still believe in them, and they had these books of residence. Okay, you come in when you're a first timer, and you seek to reside there, and they take your details, members of your households, and everything, and they were even crafting village cards or village IDs. Now, such initiatives cannot be separated from the reality we are saying that we are too many to be policed by 40,000 people. We are too many as a country. And brings in the reality that security begins with you, yes, but tying it together with the necessary legal framework, like I've said, the LCs being around, and then working together with them, that is the only way we are going to go. But actually, in places where we went to where the LCs are totally dysfunctional, the whole community is in disarray. Everyone is on his own. Everyone has his own means of security. Okay? But the central features, the authorities, that's why the current snag we have of crime preventers is that they're supposed to be, ideally, supposed to be subordinate to the community. They're supposed to be both and subordinate to the community, working closely with the LCs, and then tying it up with the police. It is now flip-flopped the other way around. Why? Because you don't have the LCs, and then even the examples you're giving of this extortion and them to believe that they're above the law is because they see themselves as an appendage of police, when actually they're supposed to be an appendage of the community.
Is that not where the problem is, Afande? Because good an idea as it is, community policing, crime prevention, it is a good idea from the onset, but it keeps running in a brick wall. Why? Because we're having these guys who have been trained, passed out, and they have, been deployed, if you like, in the community. And people are saying, and they have told your boss, Kaihura, each time he has visited communities, these crime preventers, they terrorize us, they steal from us, they extort. Some of them are armed, like I told you, guns, sticks, and so on. And so there's a lot of resistance from the public. And so what should have been a good idea from the onset is facing a very hard time. Why? Because the face of this community policing, the crime preventers, there are a problem out there, and people have told you these things.
Mr. Senya and James, the notion that crime preventers are a problem there depends on who is presenting what. I, from a practitioner point of view, and a person who has moved through communities, by the way, I want to tell you that I was with him on a research they conducted, they themselves. And part of those were people whom they had brought to discuss the very topic. And they really applauded some of the practices of crime preventers. Now, what we need to do is to identify some, but not generalization. You see, at this point in life, I don't know when we shall ever stop generalizing.
But once we are telling you cases, Afande, of problems, so we are not saying all crime preventers are bad. But you remember I told you, crime prevention is a good idea, and I backed it up by saying we have a small police force against a huge population. So it's a good idea, but there are bad, wrong elements who are messing it up. That's why there's resistance.
And we identify those wrong elements, and the law deals with them.
Are you dealing with them?
Very well. They are dealt with. I mean, but if I myself as a policeman can be dealt with in accordance to the law, what about crime preventers who work with us? And even citizens who work with us? Let me tell you, I have been in various parts of Uganda, and I want to give you 3 or 4 examples where crime preventers have done very well. One is in a sub-county called Chirike in Budaka, in Chibuku. They build for the police. First of all, they mobilize themselves. They mobilize the locals, including the LOCs, and brought on board the police and said, for us, we want security here. They
mobilized themselves.
They mobilized themselves and mobilized the other community members, including the LOC, and they built a very wonderful police station in Chirike.
And they brought police on board.
We were brought on board because it was a community-led activity.
Exactly.
2, I was in Butaleja. They have baked 35,000 bricks for the police. They have gone ahead to cause their own circles, which really empower them economically. Now, these cannot be able to be downwashed or downplayed and banished and do whatever. What I'm calling upon, even by the way here in Kampala, where you hear various voices dissenting this, dissenting that, when we had some of our errant police officers here in Natete, I think it was around 2015, where a policeman was hiring out a gun. It is crime preventers who identified that there was a goon in the community dealing with some of our errant police officers, and they managed us really to take charge of security within that area. And various examples of where they are doing very, very well. But I want us to agree that let's work together to perfect this version of crime preventers. Because it is not, by the way, let me tell you, Mr. Senyin, it is not only in Uganda where crime preventers are doing work to supplement police. Worldwide, it is a practice, because there is never a place where police numbers will ever match to the population. Okay. And as such, our efforts are more galvanized by community participation. After all, it is a legal requirement.
All right. I like that you say that let's work together. I hope we can. Let's work together, because, you know, we salute the work that you folks in police do. We know that you are too few in number for the millions of Ugandans there are. So without a doubt, community policing is important. Let's work together, weed out the goons, as you call them, so that this gets to work. We want to see crime preventers having a good face, a good name out there. You hear people call them crime promoters because of those bad elements. So let's weed those out. I'm afraid our time is up, but thank you, gentlemen, for talking to us this morning.
Welcome.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Coming up is Everyday Life.